Hey, what's up everyone, my name is Andrew and in this video I'm gonna restore, backing function and upgrade the ASUS Republic of Gamers G73SW. I got this laptop as non-working and this laptop was for parts only. And I really don't know what is working on this laptop and what is not. And I don't know what is waiting for me in the process. I got this laptop with a very few screws. The display is still here and as well the other parts and cables from the upper case. The laptop case has scratches and a few small damages around, but nothing too serious. The keyboard is damaged, it's a little bit curved and a few keys are damaged as well. When I removed the plate from the bottom side, I saw that the motherboard is here, the GPU and the CPU are here as well, and I found a 1GB RAM model, probably for testing purpose. Also, I found that one of the RAM slots is broken, but nothing too serious. And the both discs are gone and as well the disc holders. And when I tried to turn on the laptop started, but I got a black screen only. So basically this is everything that I can see and from where I began. Well, first I start with disassembling, because I need to take out the motherboard, the GPU and the other parts for detailed testing. After I took out the motherboard, I start with removing the heatsink from the CPU and the GPU. The CPU looks fine and normal, but when I take out the heatsink from the GPU, everything becomes clear. The GPU is repaired and it doesn't look really good. But also, the motherboard looks very suspicious to me. So before I move to any step further, I start with checking the motherboard in detail. So I check the voltages and I check every single component. And the only thing that was bad here was the BIOS or the CMOS battery. I changed the CMOS battery and have connected the motherboard to the charger. After a couple of seconds, the motherboard started. And I can feel the heat from the CPU, which is a very good sign. You probably didn't know, but most of the older laptops will start automatically after a few seconds if the battery is disconnected. I mean, if the main battery is disconnected, not the CMOS battery. However, on the motherboard, I have done more tests and I checked everything a couple of times. And after all, I was pretty sure that the motherboard is good. And as well, the CPU is fine. So in this case the GPU was suspected, but I still wasn't sure. After all, I can't test anything because I don't have another GPU. So first I tried to repair the old GPU. I mean, I just done a reflow. Then I cleaned the GPU and I mount the GPU on the motherboard. But the GPU is not working. However, the GTX 460M for this laptop is not too expensive. And I bought a new one for about €38. And I think these GPUs are used or refurbished. Under the sticker is the ASUS logo, and everything is looking pretty legit. So now, I connect the GPU to the motherboard and finally I got something. But right after the ASUS logo, I got a blue screen. However, this is a very usual. So now I reset the BIOS or the CMOS by removing the CMOS battery. And after this step, the laptop started normally. Now I continue with in-depth testing. Testing the motherboard and the GPU, and as well I test the other components. And fortunately the keyboard is fully functional. And also the trackpad is working well. After I finish with detailed testing, I move to cleaning the motherboard. and I cleaned the motherboard in detail from dust and dirt. Well, the motherboard is clean and everything looks fine. And now I move to disassembling the rest of the laptop. After disassemble the laptop, I move to the cleaning process. And first I start with cleaning the electronics and the cables from the inside. And later I move to cleaning the both cooling fans from dust. But also while cleaning, I check any part, in case if I need to make additional repairs. After I finished with cleaning, I found two damaged components. The subwoofer is damaged and the cable from the trackpad is damaged as well. I mean, the pins from the cable are a little bit damaged, but nothing too serious. So first I start with the subwoofer. And to fix the subwoofer, I used silicone. I put silicone around the subwoofer and then carefully I create a thin layer and now to stick the damages on the speaker. Also, later, the audio will not be loud as needs to be. In this case, I will lose about 20% of the power, but at least I will have a fully working subwoofer with a clean sound. Well, after I applied the silicone, I left the subwoofer for 24 hours drying process. Meanwhile, I moved to the trackpad cable repair. To repair the cable, first I stride the small pins and then I apply a very small amount of paper glue. The paper glue will stick the pins back to the plastic and it won't cause any damage. Also, later I clean all pins from the top side. I mean, I remove the glue using cotton buds and 96% isopropyl alcohol. After I clean all the electronics and the cables and I did the first repairs, I moved to cleaning the display and the display hinges. Here, first I start with cleaning the metal hinges and then I move to the display. So first, I start with cleaning the back side of the display from dust and dirt, and then I move to the front side. Also, to clean the display, I used a 96% isopropyl alcohol, but in combination with anti-static glass cleaner. Also I used soft brushes, cotton buds, and few soft cleaning cloths. Well, and after cleaning, the display is clean and shiny again. And now I move to the keyboard. So here, first I start with repairing the keys. When I take a closer look, I found that a key mechanism or the retainer clip is just out of the place. Actually, this is not hard to repair, just this process requests accurate, very patient and precise work. So first, I remove the retainer clip from the keyboard, because to have a better access. And this is the outer part of the retainer clip, which has two very small holes from the inside and to the both sides. The middle part is smaller. It has two very small plastics that are popping out. And I need to place the both plastics in the outer part. So on this keyboard, these two parts are interconnected. After I return the both parts on their place, I back the retainer clip on the keyboard and I place the keycap. Well, and the both keys are good. And now I move to some keyboard corrections because the keyboard is a little bit curved. After I finish with the small corrections, I move to cleaning the keyboard. So now I clean the keyboard in deep from dust and dirt. Now, when I finish with cleaning, I move to the last repair. Now I have to stick the keyboard mesh back to the keyboard. And to stick this plastic mesh, I used a paper glue. The super glue is not recommended to be used, because it may damage the keyboard. After I stick the plastic mesh back to the keyboard, I left the keyboard for a couple of hours, until the glue gets fully dry. But meanwhile, I back to the motherboard. On the motherboard, one of the RAM slots is damaged, and it cannot hold the RAM. So now, to fix the RAM slot, I took another motherboard which is for parts only. And from this motherboard, I took the both metal holders and the both plastics. Now using a paper tape, I protect the RAM slots and the motherboard around the slots, because I'm going to stick the both parts using a super glue. Well, after the super glue gets dry, I try to install a RAM, and now everything is fine, and all 4 RAM slots can be used. And now I finish with cleaning and repair all the electronics from the laptop. And now I move to cleaning the case and the other components from the case. So I'm gonna be short here because this was a pretty long process, but this is what I've done. The parts that are without electronics, like the heatsink, the cooling fan blades, and the other plastics, I wash it using warm water and dish soap. And the case, I mean the palm rest, with the trackpad I clean it using brushes and 96% isopropyl alcohol. I clean the case in this way because to avoid any damages to the trackpad. After I cleaned the entire laptop case and the other components, I moved to some small repairs on the case and the plastics from the case. Also, to stick the plastics, I used a super glue and paper tape. Actually, I used the paper tape to avoid leaking the glue from the other side. Well, after I stick the case, I move to modding the case. Actually, I paint some parts of the case, because to cover some scratches and to add some details, because of the better look and aesthetics. So first I start with the orange spray, and with the orange spray I paint the both cooling grills from the back side of the case. When I finish with the orange spray, I move to another taping process. And later, using a deep black spray, I paint the entire bottom case of the laptop. Also, using the same deep black spray, I paint the metal mesh in the upper part of the palm rest. I have done this because the metal mesh was a little bit scratched and it doesn't look really good. And as the final part, using a red signal spray, I paint the both plastics that are surrounding the cooling grills from the back side of the case. After I finish with the painting, I move to the top case, the back plastic part and the palm rest. And over these parts I stick black carbon vinyl. And after making all the repairs and the changes, everything is ready for assembling. And now I start with a long assembling process and making additional upgrades. Well, let's slow down and make the first upgrade. I got this laptop with Intel i7 2630QM CPU. This is 4 cores and 8-thread CPU, and this CPU maximum supports a 16GB of RAM. But I'm going to upgrade to Intel i7 2670QM, which is also 4 cores and 8-thread CPU. It's a little bit faster, and this CPU maximum supports a 32GB of RAM. Well, and now I will continue with applying the thermal paste over the CPU and assembling the rest of the laptop. Well, let's slow down. And now is coming the next upgrade. On this laptop, I will install a 32GB of RAM. So now, I'm gonna place the first two RAM models and then I'm gonna continue with assembling the laptop. However, 32GB of RAM is way too much for this laptop. Actually, this laptop is predicted to be with 16GB. But I install a 32GB because I wanna see how this laptop will perform with 32GB of RAM. From the bottom side, first I install the rest of the 16GB of RAM, and now I move to the disks. As primary disk, I will use a 480GB SSD, and as secondary disk, I will use a 980GB SSD. So this is going to be all SSD setup. Also, to mount the both SSDs, I used disk mounts from other laptops. The both disk mounts are different, but the both are fitting well without any modifications. So now the laptop is almost complete, but one more thing left, the keyboard. I left the keyboard for the end because I will do some modifications. The keyboard has a backlight, but the backlight is white only. And I've decided to change that in a very simple way. For this modification, I used a few in-color A4 plastic sheets. So first, I open the keyboard from the bottom side. I separate the keyboard and the backlight. Then, I move to cutting the plastics and placing the plastics between the keyboard and the backlight. Also used a different colors because to separate some keys and to make the keyboard looks more interesting. After I finish with these modifications, I mount the keyboard back to the laptop. And now I continue with installing the Windows. And as Windows, I used a Windows 10 Home. I used the Windows 10 Home because this laptop has a Windows 7 Home Premium license, and the Windows 7 Home Premium license can be still used to activate the Windows 10 Home Edition. And after making all the changes, this is the final result. Well, now let's take a closer look. After I install the Windows, I continue with in-depth testing, and everything is working fine, and this laptop is fully functional. The laptop is working pretty fast and it's great for all daily basic tasks, like web browsing, working with documents, listening to music, watching movies and videos, and everything other. But while using this laptop, I noticed something. When I checked the GPU, I saw that the GPU has a 3 GB of memory, instead of 1.5 GB as supposed to be. At first I think that this is something fake, but later when I test some games I found that all 3 GB are usable. Also, the gaming performance are in range for GTX 460M, so maybe this is a rebranded GPU. But however, this GPU is good for the value and is doing a great job. So now let's move to some games. And the first game that I test is Battlefield 3. In the Battlefield 3, I used all high settings and 1080p screen resolution. This game is running pretty well and it's fully playable. And the frame rate is about or above 30. The next game that I test on this laptop is the Crysis 2. In Crysis 2 I used gamer settings and 1080p screen resolution, and the Crysis 2 is running pretty smooth. And personally, I was very surprised by the performance. In Crysis, the frame rate is mostly above 30, but very often the frame rate is about 40. And the last game that I test is GTA 5. The GTA 5 is going well also. In this game I used medium settings and 1080p screen resolution. And in the GTA 5 the frame rate is mostly about or above 30, but sometimes goes even more.
Shaken but not stirred. Just a lesson that I've learned, and so it goes.
Well, and this is all about this ASUS Republic of Gamers laptop, and I'm very glad because I bagged this laptop in a function again. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope this video will give ideas and inspiration to bag some tech in a function again. Also, if you want to support my work and my channel, you can press the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.